So, welcome to the second hour of Mind Shifters Radio, and today is Monday, November the 3rd, 2025. Welcome, Michael.
So how do you be?
I be very, very well. My hip not be so well. I think I'm going to get my hip repaired. It's incrementally worse every day.
Time to get it done, eh?
Yeah, I guess so. So that's not a big deal. That's just a hip.
Well, we'll hold the space that it is easy and the surgeon's hands are guided. I assume you're talking about a hip replacement.
Yeah.
Well, from what I understand, it's a surgery they pretty much got down pat these days. So we'll see it. Ease and grace and you dancing with the stars.
Right on. That's what I'm missing. I want to get back to it. Yeah. How are you?
I am well. Things have changed here a little bit with Jeanie hobbling around on crutches. It's definitely shifted things, especially with the fact that we're less than 2 weeks away from an intensive.
Yeah.
The stress levels up. Although one of the things that I'm enjoying, obviously, you break your foot, and there's definitely a whole other level of stress. And what that's led me to is really appreciating the work that we've done together in our relationship. I go back to the early days, and we each had our power person dynamics, and there's a lot of work to move through that stuff. And now, recognizing the hugely increased level of stress that, instead of when the stress is up and the chips are down, we're just kind of smiling at each other and laughing. And it's like, oh, here we go again. So
the stress went up, but the chips didn't go down. That's wonderful.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. So it's
that's good.
It's definitely it's given me another level of appreciation for the work that Jeanie's done, that I've done, and that there's a lot going on with baby and a little girl and Halloween and gardens closing down, freezing. We picked and processed about a 5-gallon bucket of tomatoes and peppers yesterday, and about probably a 15-pound box of peppers. So there's lots going on, but it's.
Did you get a lot of green tomatoes, Michael? Because we have a ton.
We got a lot of green tomatoes, and we're looking at green chutney, looking for a recipe. So probably in the next day or two, we'll see if we can get that in. Peppers all in the freezer. And
fried green tomatoes. I don't know how to do them, but remember that movie? I want to try it.
Oh yeah, it's a great movie, and I love fried green tomatoes. But all of ours that are left are the little cherry tomatoes, and you can't do fried green tomatoes with those. It doesn't work for some reason. They're too strong.
That's nice to know. Yeah. These are bigger ones, so it might. Okay.
Cool.
Well, I don't know about you and the dynamics of your marriage, but we've had a very traditional marriage. Tim was brought up with a silver spoon, and he never did household chores. And when we got married, I was the one to be at home, and I move around fast, or I used to, and I'm good with carpentry. And so those chores were easy for me to do, and I did them readily, and he didn't. Now I'm saying, could you carry this downstairs, and could you go to the basement and get this? He's very willing to do it, but he needs a lot of instruction, like what dials to push when you want to put clothes in the dryer, or how do you hang them out? And so the first time he hung them out, they were just bunched up together, little mounds of clothes. And of course, they never dried. So basic instruction stuff. And he keeps saying, wow, you do all this all the time? I love that. I love hearing that. Yeah, I do. I have been. And so
appreciation. That's nice.
Yeah, that's good.
I do appreciate all that Michael's having to do, because just like we were downstairs, so it's like, Michael, you have to start the show, because I crawl up the stairs. I don't trust going on the crutches.
Oh boy, I can believe it. Oh man. So
yeah, I'll catch a video of her as she's bumping down the steps on her butt and then crawling back up. I'll post it on Facebook.
That's not nice, Michael. Actually,
Funny.
it would be very entertaining, and everybody does it once in a while. Yeah. Well,
So how
carry
is
on,
everyone
folks.
doing? Anyone got anything exciting happening in your world? Shawn, thank you for that compendium that you sent on the breath.
Absolutely.
And
You're certainly very welcome. I did have a question or some feedback.
oh, cool.
So you bring a new aspect that I overlooked, actually, the order. Now, as we pay attention to
Are
ourselves,
you talking about the text that I sent you?
yes, sir.
Okay.
Dr. Michael had replied a minor critique, actually. Actually, if you want to go ahead and fill him in on it, that's fine.
Well, why don't we just fill in so everybody knows what we're talking about? Shawn had done
Yes.
a whole research thing on breath. I thought it was interesting that, and it appears in what you sent me, that AI is quoting me as a source, which is kind of cool. But that one of the things that Shawn had texted was healing happens when love, bracket the active presence of God, re-enters perception, semicolon, the breath naturally deepens. And from the breath practice, and I've been sharing this now since I did the quantum still point on myself back almost a year ago now, just I'm getting so much insight and so much more connection with the breath. So I sent back just feedback on that one line saying that needs to be reversed rather than healing happens when love, the active presence of God, re-enters perception. The breath naturally deepens. Reverse that. When we deepen the breath, healing happens. Love, the active presence of God, re-enters perception. So that was our communication. So go ahead.
Yes, here's my offering, and this is why I kind of had it like that. You're right, AI assembled many different parts, but I've been working rather intensely, I guess, here and there with building parameters and different sources and styles and such into the thing, putting a lot of effort into it. And so when I get something out, of course I have to go through and you have to proof check everything, and you have to do due diligence. You can't just copy paste what AI says. It's not what it's designed for, I think. For example, like if it makes a song, you don't just take that song and put it out on YouTube, right? It makes a song so you and your buddies can play that song live for yourselves, that sort of a thing. But going back directly with that, with what you say, so if I'm understanding it correctly, it sort of works both ways. Let me refer back. So when we, you say one twist you would offer. Healing happens when love, the active presence of God, re-enters perception and the breath naturally deepens. And you say to reverse that. My thinking is, and as I understand it, my experience when I look at myself objectively, one of the greatest sins is forgetfulness, we could say. So when I remember who I am, what I am, where I am, not necessarily talking about the body, but when I remember who I am, now I'm reminded to take a breath, to breathe. Kind of like when you say, are you breathing? When you're dealing with the in-depth traumas and things on the show, you're reminding the person to breathe. They breathe and then you're restored. So, but that does bring in your point brings in an interesting aspect that I had not looked at. So which is it? Or is it both? Can it be both? You remind someone to breathe and then they remember who they are, or they remember who they are and then they breathe and fit into their role.
Well, here's my perspective on it at this point.
Sure.
Which of course is always subject to change.
Right.
When they say in the scriptures, the veil of the temple must be rent in twain.
Mm-hmm.
The veil of the temple is an artificial barrier, my offering,
Yes.
between the subconscious and the unconscious mind. It's built by holding the breath. And what happens is what we want to hide away in carbon-based memory, what we don't want to feel, what we don't want to deal with, we withdraw the breath from the tissue it's stored in, which leaves that locked in tissue and creates this unnatural condition called an unconscious mind. It is not until the breath gets to that place and is allowed, the veil is opened and allowed into that cell, that the pain, the trauma, the drama, whatever it is that needs healing, begins its dissolution. So my take is the breath has to arrive in the cell, and the breath is, and I don't know that we can distinguish with our language. It's probably a false idea, but the breath is the carrier of love, or the love is the breath itself, or the breath is the love itself.
Right.
I'm not sure we can distinguish language-wise with that.
And
But when
that
we withdraw breath from any part of our structure, we're creating this unnatural, unconscious mind. And my take is it's the restoration of the breath, the softening of the tissue, and the ability of the breath to reach in, and whatever has been, try to come up with a word for it, solidified there, is melted by the presence of the breath reaching that part of the structure.
So we may be approaching it from two different angles, heading in the same direction. Ideally, one would breathe and remain in active present love. Whereas, or a counterpoint, if you have someone who has faced trauma and stress and pain and fear, hostility, then you would have to remind them to breathe to return to being. Is that kind of what we're saying?
Yeah, my take is that while we're holding, if I shared the Targum Onkelos translation of the creation story around the breath, where it says, and the Creator breathed into the nostrils, and man became a thinking, living, functioning being. So can we separate the breath from that in any way, shape, or form? I don't think so. But in order to access something that needs to be healed, the breath is the door opener. My take is the door opener for that part of the unconscious. You can't open the door without the breath. So my take is the breath comes first. Once the door is open, and the breath and the concurrent active presence of love is delivered to that cell, and that's where the healing occurs, would be my best understanding.
Agreed. Sure. Okay.
And the practice, for me now, I over the period of the last year, since I did my own quantum still point, I'm spending anywhere from an hour to 3 hours a day in still point breath. And it's the practice that's teaching me. And it's really clear to me that when the definition of Rukha Dekuchu was given, she who undoes the effects of our errors, it's the breath. And everywhere we've been tricked, everywhere that they talk about the spirit, the spirit, the spirit, the spirit, delete the word, because it's now we've separated out and it's in the hands of some ecclesiastical body that's going to control this thing. It's been taken out of our own nostrils. It is our own breath. It's always ours. But I guess in order to keep somebody in a job, you put it in their hands and they administer this spirit to you now. But everywhere that the scriptures talk about spirit, they're talking about breath. They're not talking about a holy disembodied spirit being, or however people think about it, or something that's withheld from them. It's something they withhold from themselves when they refuse to breathe.
In the Aramaic, oh yes, you mentioned something about she, and we should not have any issue with that, because in the Aramaic or the ancient Hebrew, whichever one you want to call it, it carries the idea that while Elohim, if I'm pronouncing it correctly in the Hebrew, while it carries the idea that it is a masculine God, his spirit is feminine. And so you have two in one. You have both. God is not divided. Of course, we know from A Course in Miracles. But that's an interesting point for sure. I'm going to try and work that into updating my my stuff with what we talked about with the aspect of the breath as well.
Refinement on that one. We tend to take the word male and female there and think of man and women. God is masculine man, but actually when those words are, it is not an indicator, because the word is gendered feminine is not the indicator of a woman, and
Right.
The fact that a word is gendered masculine is not the indicator of a man. If we go, let's say, for instance, in modern language today in French, we have LE, and there are certain things that are, and I don't remember my French lessons very well from school years ago, but le homme, that words, objects, this set of objects are gendered feminine, doesn't mean they're male, doesn't mean there's a man there. The language genders them feminine, and in the same way, LA, if I remember correctly, genders that word masculine, but it's got nothing to do with them being a male or a female. That's been, I think, a monstrous mistake that's been made. It's just the language. There are some languages, Aramaic being one of them, and French, many other languages that gender words a certain way, and it's turned it around into, see, it's a man, but it's not.
It's almost like non-tangible versus something that's tangible. You can see with the sight versus something you have to know within.
Yes.
Or see within.
Yeah.
It's linguistics, very interesting.
Yes. And the biggest thing is to enter into the practice. It's interesting that there's been this push for belief. You got to believe. And, in truth, it's more about believing than it is about belief.
I mentioned to the wife, we were on the way home from the store. We were talking about how the spirit of, fill in the blank, is passed on to children. And I thought, we say this word, the spirit of, and such, but I said, what is the spirit? Does the Holy Spirit come and pass some bad genes on into the child because the mother and the father were a drunkard? Well, no, God doesn't do that. It appears there, and we call it spirit.
Nothing to do with it.
Right, nothing to do with it. Yeah. So I think you're definitely onto something about how we use or toss around the word spirit. I propose that if we understood properly spirit, then we could say it, we can share it amongst ourselves, and we would know what one another were talking about. It wouldn't be a disembodied being somewhere out there somewhere, but very much internal, electromagnetic. Yeah. You're right. Breath and consciousness, that's synonymous with God.
Yes.
Extremely important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let me share a paragraph from the introduction, or pardon me, the foreword to Jeanie's book.
Yeah.
The book you hold in your hands breaks through centuries of denied, projected family and cultural pathology that has become normalized in the minds of men. Herein, Jeanie delivers a light that reveals truths lost to those burdened by fear, blame, hostility, abuse, and depression. She provides tools and demonstrates how to acquire an understanding of life that has been buried under generations of misinterpretation. She unwinds the brutal dogma of fear, promoting religious men, unhealed supposed priests who, as Jesus pointed out 2,000 years ago, quote, "For they bind heavy burdens and grievous to be borne and lay them on men's shoulders, but they themselves will not move one of them with their finger," Matthew 23:24. These unmoved priests often told a story, insisted in belief in the story about transformation. And Jeanie brings the process of transformation right before your eyes in these pages. So to me, the key is we can do all kinds of heady things in talking about something, but have we entered the practice? And that's where the rubber hits the road.
Yeah,
and
on
of
the
course,
way
the
to the
practice.
Christ mind.
Yeah. And, you go back 2,000 years ago, and he shared that rigorous practice with people. And what did the greater part of his followers say, the ones who were really close to him? They're too hard a saying, who can hear it? And it's as they walked with him, no more they left. So even with the words, falling directly from his lips, they couldn't hear his meaning. And they dismissed what he attempted to teach as too difficult. And that goes way back to Isaiah. Therefore I speak to them in parables, because they seeing do not see, and hearing they hear not, neither do they understand. And in them is filled the prophecy of Elias, which saith, by hearing you shall hear, and seeing, hear and shall not understand, and seeing you shall see and shall not perceive. For this people's heart is waxed gross, and their ears are dull of hearing, and their eyes have closed. And he's talking about living out of the constructs of the unconscious mind, rather than having a space available for revelation to enter into the mind and show us something other than what's been stored in our minds that have been, as Isaiah said it, waxed gross, filling the space of perception with constructs out of past data stored in carbon-based memory, rather than having that space available for the actuality to write meanings, what's truly going on. And that actuality can only write meanings while the breath is moving. When the breath is cut off, there's no source. It's like, it's like an interruption in the uplink to the internet. You're doing something, and all of a sudden there's an interruption. Computer stops. Then can't do anything. So you lost your connection. And that's exactly what holding the breath is. You lost your connection. And, it's so pervasive that, we hear about people holding their breath till they turn blue and pass out. That's shutting down the uplink, because the uplink, my take is, the uplink vitalizes us. And if we're at full vitality, we can't hide anything from ourselves. So people opt to go to lower vitality levels by holding the breath and dissociating from the content of their own minds. And that just leads to crazy time. And if people don't have the tools to do anything about that, it becomes a great belief system. Lots of BS in it, but it doesn't go anywhere as far as healing goes. Physiologically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, relationally, financially, any arena.
It's all tied together.
It is all tied together.
If you look at the Our Father prayer, and you understand the mentality, the culture of those who spoke Aramaic, when you look at the Our Father prayer, you can deduce that Jesus was literally jump-starting consciousness in a people that had none. They didn't even know that they could. That's what I get out of it. He devised a method in which human beings could jumpstart or have their consciousness started. I might be wrong, but
have you heard the video presentation on living, not saying the Lord's Prayer that I do?
Most likely, but if because I know Dale Allen Hoffman.
I'll send you
I'll take a look at it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
and what I point out in that, the word prayer in Aramaic means to set a trap for God.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That we become the space where we are filled with the breath, we capture that active presence of love and are able to radiate it in the world. And then the Greeks turned it into, put your order in the cosmic gift catalog. Tell the Creator what the Creator should be doing for you today. And in that sense, it is not a prayer in any way, shape, or form. That action is petition, and the instruction set in Aramaic is, here's how you live as the presence of love.
It's almost like a dream catcher. I'm not into the dream catcher thing, but it's kind of like a net or a screen of some kind.
Exactly. Exactly. And my offering is literally the bones of the head, the spine, and the pelvis are literally the net catcher. They're the antenna.
Now we're getting into it.
The shape of an antenna determines the frequencies received. If I have a properly oriented and aligned TV antenna on my roof for channel 2, I turn on my TV and I have this beautiful picture and sound. Somebody goes up and bends the arms on the antenna, turns it backward. All of a sudden, I have snow and noise and interference. Doesn't work well. It's out of alignment.
Hey, this TV's broke.
Yeah. And what they call the Lord's Prayer, if you look at, they didn't ask him to say prayer for them. He said they didn't know. They asked, how do we pray? Teach us, tell us. We don't know. Obviously, there was a lot of confusion about prayer, as there is yet today. And he gave them a set of instructions for how to capture, through resonance, the active presence of love in which we live, move, and have our being, flood it through physiology into the world. And the core of the antenna is, my take is literally the bony structure. In particular, you look at all the fine bones in the head, and the fact that the head is in a state of continuous motion, or is supposed to be. And people think when the baby's soft spot hardens that the head is fixed. It's not. It's in a state, and it's only a millimeter or two. But when you realize that it's an antenna, and that the shape of an antenna determines the frequencies it received, in one state, which they call flexion, where the system is contracted, it is one antenna. And then when it moves through its range of motion into the opposite state, which is extension, then we have a totally different antenna. And the whole range of motion is a whole range of shapes that is, my take is designed to bring in frequencies that will keep us in that expression. And Yeshua is giving them a set of instructions for how to do that, how to stay in alignment, and how to be oriented to capturing that signal. And if there's physiological or emotional injury, then the antenna's out of alignment, and until it's restored, you just can't get what you're designed to have. So it all ties together. What a fun time. What a fun, exciting process.
Absolutely.
Yay. Well, any other thoughts for you, sir?
I only had one from yesterday, and of course, if that's a private meeting, we don't share details.
No, that's
such,
fine.
But I did have something to offer, and I guess ask a question on as well. So something you had mentioned in the beginning of the session yesterday,
Right.
we may have kind of ran over it and not acknowledged it fully in depth and appreciated it. So let's revisit it again, if you don't mind.
Go for
You
it.
said yesterday about the body. It's made of dirt, a clean dirt, by the way.
Soil.
Yeah, soil. But it's an animated tool. I don't think you used the word tool, but I'll interject that. It's an animated tool, or like a machine of sorts that the local computer, the brain, can run. And then we're to be connected to the internet, if you will, or the community of love.
Yes.
So if A Course in Miracles is, if I'm understanding the concept correctly, in light of eternity, there would be no I. So I would have to ask myself, who is it that hurts? If I say I hurt, or I have pain, or I have trauma, in light of A Course in Miracles, and the understanding that the body is just the animated tool, who is the I? Is there a you that exists?
Yeah, my offering would be that there is the individuated human awareness expression.
Okay, the awareness,
and
yes.
The world and perception has made it appear that individuated means separated. And there's a whole bunch of us running around disconnected.
write
You
that
go
down.
back, yeah, you go back to the ancient idea of the mystical body of Christ. And what do you have? You have, today about 7.5 billion individuals on the planet, none of them separated from any other, and functioning in harmony. That would be called the body of Christ. Now, they didn't have the brain cells back then to, or at least those who didn't have the eyes to see or the ears to hear didn't have the brain cells for it. So it was spoken of in parables, but individuated, and as far as the Course goes, individuated expression isn't separate expression. That would be my take on that one.
So adding to a layer of that, we could say that if we identify with our shortcomings or we identify with our pain, we're exchanging our real identity for something else and giving that trauma power. If we identify as an individual, yeah. Okay, understood. Yeah.
Yeah, giving up identification with the small s self. Yeshua says, in order for you, and I would interject being, true self, created self, to live, you, non-being, false self, image in mind generated on a carbon-based memory, has to die, he says. That self has to go. So it's the false carbon-based memory self that comes from generations and generations of experiencing because of errant perception, being separate and separated. I love how Einstein says it. He says, if you think you're separate or separated from the rest of humanity, you're living in an optical delusion.
Right.
Truth being, there's only one of us. And just like in again, it's kind of a metaphor, but if you look at someone's body, so-called body, their energy system, there are trillions of cells, different functions, all individual, but part of one body. So we have millions of humans, millions of creatures that are part of one body. And when we wake up to the fact that we're part of one body, then I think we'll start to get about what humanity is really designed for. And it isn't this loveless toil that most people are functioning from.
Bingo, yeah.
And so the forgiveness process is part and parcel of dissolving the false self. Once the false self has been dissolved, then forgiveness goes away. There's no use for it. There's no need for it.
That's correct. But it's an ongoing process, though. Yes.
Yeah, it's an ongoing process. And once you've dissolved the false self and incarnated as awareness of the true self, then there's no need for it anymore. There's no requirement for it anymore. The tool isn't needed because the job's done.
And time can stop.
And whatever comes next, who knows? What it looks like. At this point, I think that there's a cute cartoon that somebody posted on my Facebook page back a few months ago, and it has this guy who's obviously a politician standing in front of this large group of people, and he's talking about change and how exciting change is, and and people are throwing confetti up in the air, and they're all excited about this thing of change. And then the next frame, he says, now, how many want to change? And all of a sudden, the whole place goes dark, and everybody's looking down at their feet. Who wants to change? Who wants to do the work? And to me, that's a good metaphor for when we're looking down at the false self, there is no truth available to that mind. And it's not until we can turn and embrace the state of being rather than the constructs of the mind that we wake up to who we really are and what we're really here to function as. And it's not yet in common enough experience for it to be happening yet. But, we're moving in that direction.
Oh, yes. Yeah, very much so. I'm reminding of when the children crossed the Red Sea. Red in ancient times may have meant the emotions. So when you divide or you part the emotions and you look, yes, you're on dry ground, but that dry place can be confusing because you've identified with the emotions for so long, you think that it's you. So if
Yeah.
someone were to take that away improperly or unsafely, then you put that person in a state of confusion because they don't know what else to do. And
Yeah.
so, yeah,
They're identified.
right.
There's actually a great theme in the Ten Commandments where, the sea is parted and everybody gets to the other side and they're so jubilant and so excited and, oh, Moses, you've saved us. This is so great. And 10 minutes later, they're back to whining and crying again because they haven't done their work. So, it's like, well, when are you going to take care of this for us? What are you going to do about that? Oh, look what you've done to us now. Back to this same old. Because the transformation and it takes, like, there's no way to storm the gates of this one. Each individual has to do their own work to achieve that transformed state. It's not something we're knighted with or it's just handed to us, as long as we're functioning out of unresolved generations of hostility and fear, and those energetic patterns not having been forgiven still remain in physiology. Those energetic patterns in physiology are going to set up resonance. It's going to draw experiences. Those experiences are going to resonate those patterns, and off we go again into the rage, the guilt, the fear, the unresolved generational dynamics. The real work has to be done in order to be freed of that.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I started out with, sharing with at the opening of the session when Susan and I were talking, and Jeanie having broken her foot definitely had, especially at this, we're 2 weeks away from an intensive. It's freezing, gardens are closing down, we got all this food process and such, so the stress is up for sure. And the fact that I was appreciating the fact that we have the tools, and that when one of those things that could be a trigger for, some sort of upset because of stress, what we're doing is just kind of look at each other and, oh yeah, another laugh. It's like, it's funny.
Yeah. Isn't that wonderful?
As opposed to being crazy time. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You almost look forward in a, I don't mean in a sick-minded way, but you almost look forward to not being tested, but okay, let's see if I know what I think I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So several times we just looked at each other and both broken into laughter.
That's
So
wonderful.
It's been a nice affirmation of the fact that we've been doing our work, and the fruit of it's pretty sweet.
Jeanie, do you have a boot? Did they give you a boot?
Yeah.
Okay. And ice?
Yeah, they put me in a boot and on crutches and told me not to put any weight on it. So,
right.
And I'm not good on crutches.
Yeah, take your time.
I go back to see the orthopedic doctor on Friday, and if they'll re-x-ray it, and hopefully it's healing fine in the boot. If not, he said they'd put a pin in it. But,
oh my.
Yeah.
I broke my 5th metatarsal on.
That's what I did.
That's it.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. It was 3.5 weeks before I dared put any pressure on it. And it felt funny and everything like that, but I had discovered that it was healed enough on its own. I could start walking on it normally before going back. But yeah, please don't. What is it? It's you need zinc to metabolize the calcium and something like that, right? And some magnesium and maybe something else to help aid in healing bones quicker.
K2 directs the calcium.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually mine was the 5th. You said yours was the 4th.
5th.
Mm-hmm. Oh, 5th. Okay. Yeah. It's the one on the outside of your foot, between your little toe and your ankle.
Leading the 5th.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, if you look at Jeanie there, and make a sound again, Jeanie, so you can back up on that camera.
I'm back on.
You'll see right behind her, there's a little gate, and we have a closed-in area. We're in a fairly small house, and so with all the things, there's a gate for the kids at the stairs and all that. So there's not a lot of room for crutches, and
right.
so it's been a bit of a challenge, right?
you'll strengthen that one leg up pretty good, and you'll have to just be mindful to balance it out once you're out of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep, throw that alignment out easy.
I got a question along these lines.
Go for it.
Having to do with doing one's work, therefore healing the body. I mean, Jeanie, you mentioned this in your book. A lot of physical problems will manifest because there have been mental problems that have not been, or emotional problems that haven't been dealt with.
Correct.
I had a priest in our previous parish who was outed because he came down with AIDS. And he was a bipolar, brilliant, difficult, lovable, scary guy. So here he is outed with AIDS. And as he got sicker, he got healthier mentally. And I don't understand what happened to him, but by the time he died, which was too young, in his 50s, he was saying, my bags are packed, I'm ready to go. And he was having normal interactions with people, probably for the first time since he'd been a teenager. A lot of love went back and forth between him and us, and it appeared that he died a healthy man emotionally.
Right.
And I wondered what it was about his being ill that brought him there, or did the illness bring him there?
Well, you've heard me say before, the purpose of pain is to make our ears grow. And we can stay in denial through a lot, but once the pain is right there in one's face, and in his case the threat of death, that's a pretty strong call to attention. And I could easily imagine, now of course I have no idea what went on for him, but I could easily imagine that call for attention probably set him on a track of doing a level of work that perhaps before he was not motivated or interested in. And I can easily see that, okay, it's got my attention. I'm going to dig in and do what I maybe have not been doing so diligently, and so cleaning up the mind.
Well, Michael, there's no way of knowing whether he consciously did work the way we can do work with your tools, but work got done somehow. I don't even think he would have had any notion that he had work to do. I have no idea.
If he was a priest, it would seem that...
It would seem, but he told me once that he was a priest because that's what they did in their family. He didn't seem to have any particular individual calling to it.
No.
That he's a mystery, but I always thought that's one reason I don't feel too badly about having a hip replacement. It looks as if I'm not doing my work because I have a malfunctioning hip. But on the other hand, knock on wood, I can say I've never been more joyful and at peace and enjoying my friends and my relatives, and my kids are well, and then my hip goes out.
Doing your work.
Well, so why the hip? There's not a direct correlation. Like Jeanie, she busted a bone. That woman's been doing her work. Why did she get a busted bone? What does that mean? Some secret junk that's still in there? I don't believe it.
Maybe a call to another level of understanding, seeing as how it relates to, that's oftentimes what those who do the correlations look at as feet being understanding, and hip moving forward. And you've certainly been picking up the tools and moving forward in your life. And I think to come up with any specific correlation, I think it takes an individual looking into themselves. They're the only one who can really tell us what's going on there. But if the man was a priest, even if it's, well, this is what we do in our family, that would be all the more reason that there would be someone in his family at some point, if he's from generations of priests, that got the message that there's work to be done. They didn't say to the Yeshua they were representing, too hard a saying, and walk with him no more. They continued to walk with him when they were called to look at their rage or their guilt or their fear or their sadness. And I would imagine that, being told you don't have long to live, especially someone that young, would be a big attention getter.
Yeah. Well, you're right about what you just said before that, too. I can tell there's some work for me to do. Whether if I did it or not, my hip would heal, I have no idea. But I'm working on something using the tools, but very much by myself at this point, that's been the stickiest thing in my whole life. And it's still sticky.
Mm.
I'm building happiness all around the sticky thing, but the sticky thing is still there.
So we're here to support you opening the stinky things and letting go of them.
You changed it to stinky. I said sticky.
Yeah, I got it. I heard the difference, and I consciously used a slightly different word. Because what is sticky in us that we refuse to deal with is sooner or later going to create stinky.
And Shawn made a good point. He said, Paul had a thorn in the flesh. And I just looked it up real quick, too. I remember that. And, he pleaded with God to remove it. And God said his grace was sufficient and that his power was made perfect in weakness. So, it's perhaps not doing it on our own, but depending on him and others. It was actually one of the first things I said to Michael when we got back from the ER was, that I hated the helplessness, that I have
about 30 times in the last 3 days, I've had to say, stop. No, sit down. No, don't get up to get the spoon. I'll get up and get the spoon. And it's like, it's almost quicker. It's like, oh, I got it. I have to do it. It's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. You can receive support, caring. So perhaps that's the lesson here.
Yeah, maybe.
In any event, with the increased levels of stress, there's certainly a sweetness in it.
I remember, I don't know who quoted this, but I remember reading, do not try to teach yourself or force yourself to love God. You can't.
No.
But when everything preventing that is removed, you will love God. So, and I know you've said the same, Michael, remove all the barriers and there it'll be.
And then you will stop loving anyone and everyone, and you'll start functioning out of and as love as you're designed to. And I know you don't like that idea, but that's all right.
Here comes the fight.
I know you want to do that. I don't even know what to call it thing. But once again, my best metaphor for that one is, if there's a Cadillac, a brand new Cadillac sitting out in the driveway, and there's a brand new Volkswagen, and you don't know the difference, and you get to keep whichever one you drive away. And I define a Cadillac as a yellow bug-shaped thing with, VW on the hubcaps, and that's the Cadillac. That's the one that's worth the money, and you plan to drive off the lot and sell it and collect the cash. You're going to drive away with that Volkswagen. You're not going to drive away with the Cadillac because you don't know what the word means. And the mind can only fulfill according to the definitions we have of words. And my take is, we have been conned to the max to call this conditional approval that we have for each other, i.e., I love you, but boy, if you don't do what I tell you to do, I'll puke all over you. That has nothing to do with love. And that's what our culture has forced down our throats, has brainwashed us with. When I free myself of that false definition, then I get to show up as the presence of love, because I've removed everything that goes against it. Showing up as the presence of love can only happen when I know that's the task. If I think I'm supposed to, in spite of what you say and do, keep loving you, then I'm on a false path, and I've given my mind a false set of directions, and I don't get to cash in on the Cadillac.
You know what, Michael? What I'm afraid of is that you're going to take away affection. I've been saying I love, but I think I've just figured out right now, that
That's the word, yeah.
Affection is acceptable and fine, right?
2000, that's what comes from functioning as the presence of love. And it's
sure
going to be
does.
affection. It's going to be affection even for the people that yesterday were hated. If one removes hate, then they're going to have affection. They're going to have, I've used a different word for it. You've heard me speak about it many times, and it's the Buddhist tradition that has for this aspect of being of compassion. That I'm going to hold that space of compassion, even for what the world calls the archenemy, as Yeshua did with the high priest servant. That's going to be offered. That's that full embrace of the other, whatever the other's doing. There's no condition left on it. It is literally, totally, and completely all embracing love when being shows up. But what the world calls love is this conditional. Yep, as long as you're doing my list, everything will be okay. I'll approve of you, and I'll call it love.
Well,
but I can approve of someone and be in full compassion and affection for them too.
Yeah.
But I can't embrace them fully in the presence of my being until I am filled with the presence of my own being.
Come in.
But that's a good catch on the affection thing. Yes.
Hello.
Hi. Okay, I'm going to mute myself because Othman's just showed up and I want to greet him. So,
okay, blessings. All right.
Okay.
Appreciate you. Bye-bye.
Oh, I didn't. Hang on. I got to do this.
You're muted. There you go. Cool. So how is everyone else doing? Anything exciting? We've got 5 minutes. Who's got a 5-minute conversation that you'd like to open up?
Well, Andrea had sent me a text. I sent her results to her personal code this morning.
Nice work.
Said that she doesn't really understand the evaluations. Is it measuring the areas that are out of balance so that awareness and action can be taken to bring it back into balance? And I told her, the 2 videos that I sent you covers all 10 areas, but you can fast forward through the video and just watch the 3 that are your challenge areas now. And Michael explains it really well of, what the assignments are to strengthen that area and to bring it back into balance. You want to add something in the last 3 minutes here to that?
Sure. Well, the personal code evaluation is a way of measuring, quote unquote, where the holes are in your mind, where the blockages are. And you'll notice when you did the evaluation, you went through and you went, gee, I don't know how to answer that. Gee, it might be this, it might be that. Well, that question, it might be this, it might be that. Well, that's the power of that evaluation, is it causes you to have to really contemplate through everything, and the conclusions that you come to are what end up giving the pattern for where the blocks are in the mind. And then the assignments, of course, are, let's say if I have let's say honoring self is a challenge for me. I might do something like cancel the thought, break my foot, and somebody will offer to support me with something. I'll go, oh, no, I have to do it myself. So the assignment there would be, when someone offers, Jeanie, to do something for you, instead of jumping up and saying, I have to do it, you honor yourself by taking a breath and going, oh, I can receive that. Yay, I deserve that, because you do. And so that would be, kind of an example of what the evaluation's about. And each area, and what we do is, out of the 10 different areas that it measures, we give assignments for the area number 1, number 2, number 3, which are your lowest scores, which simply means they're where the biggest learning is possible. And the specific tools that I lay out in the video are how to work through that particular challenge. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense, but it's still, I think my resistance with it is it feels really vulnerable because I don't understand it. And it's like, what are you looking into that I don't know is being looked into? And do I want you to look into it? So I really struggled, to be honest.
Okay.
And
Got it.
I don't know how honest I was. I wasn't able to actually evaluate myself after. But I just knew that I was both times really struggling with it.
Well, the improvements in your score from the first time to now are awesome. And considering you haven't done an intensive, usually we'll see those kinds of changes when someone does an intensive. But let me assure you, we're not looking into anything. I don't look at your scores and say, well, you answered this question this way and that question that way and this question and that question. I have no clue how you answer any of the questions. I don't look at it. I don't even have access to it. It's done by computer. But it's based on a thing called the MMPI, which is a Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory, which is kind of the gold standard of psychological testing. And years of putting together this evaluation process simply by the way people answer questions, the profile that comes out of it is what gives you your scores. It's nothing that I or Jeanie look at in any way, shape, or form. It's the way the evaluation has been structured by a group of really master psychologists in being able to ferret out where people's challenges are. And then what we've done is taken the tools we've developed and said, okay, so here's how, if this is one of your challenges, here's how you can best overcome it.
Okay,
so maybe
thank you for that.
That'll maybe make the next time you take it easier, because we'll do it again at the end of the intensive.
Okay, awesome.
But
Thank
we're
you
not
so
looking
much.
into it at all.
Obviously, though, I have some areas that
I'd like to keep kind of. Well, you're not alone. You're not alone. I mean, now you're with us humans. So
one of the things about that test, I took it a few times and find it mind-boggling because the questions in some ways didn't seem at all in my cognitive territory. They were like speaking a foreign language. How can I answer this or that? But I think the goal there is to disorient you from logical thinking and get you so that you're just going to answer the best you can and let the chips fall. There, now the chips are down, Michael. You let it happen, and then you get an amazing evaluation that actually seems kind of true.
Okay.
And I'll just offer that, it's something we've used for the last 40 plus years, and it's at least, and I'm saying this because of feedback, it's like, how could they tell from that that's true about me? It is true about me. It's at least 95% accurate.
Okay.
And if you use the tools, I remember the first time that Dr. Tim came to an intensive and we were talking about the evaluation, and everybody takes it. And then we started talking about the changes in scores. And I remember Dr. Tim saying, well, what are you talking about, changes in scores? So, well, but at the end of the intensive, we'll do it again so people will see their changes. And he was like, no, we use this. I'm a psychologist. We use this, but those scores don't change. And I can remember him saying, well, maybe their validity score will change. But otherwise, this is a person set for life. It's like, not if you got Yeshua's tools, it's not. And we've seen changes at Heartland in one season where a person has come. I'm thinking about one person in particular who was on his way to being, he was military, and he was on his way to being put in long-term isolation because of mental problems. And they didn't have a bed for him in the VA. And so his sister had actually just finished helping me do some editing on my book. And he went to see his sister, which was, when all else failed, he would go see his sister and she'd give him a good meal. And he'd go out in the woods by himself. Well, the sister had just finished helping edit my book, and said, "Hey, why don't you talk to Michael Ryce?" And he came to Heartland and spent a summer there. And I don't remember exactly what the change was, but there are 10 different areas with a potential of 100, so 1,000 points. And over the period of that summer, his change was something like 800 out of 1,000 points.
Mm.
Wow.
And I mean, if you take the tools and turn around, psychology doesn't have the tools, but if you take the tools, that kind of turnaround happens. And we see it all the time. As the night follows day of people who use the tools, the game changes. So glad you're with us and glad you're using the tools, and nice work. Some really nice gains doing that on your own. It's pretty powerful.
I was
So
just going to add,
go ahead.
If I can, real quick, because of time, by way of encouragement for her, as you use the tools and as you trust yourself to open up yourself enough to look at your own mind, it will get easier and easier, and eventually you'll begin to like it. You'll look forward to it, and it will be safe as well.
Yeah, Terry Bowling when he first started in AA decades ago, he had one of his early teachers in AA, and he's, people are encouraged to go to meetings. And Terry said to the guy, "How long do we have to do these meetings? How long do we have to go to them?" And his mentor said, "Until you want to go to them."
There you go.
And we get the same question with worksheets. How many of these damn worksheets do we have to do? Until you want to do them, because you see the changes that happen. So anyway, appreciate y'all being here. Have a blessed one, and we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.